You've probably assumed that lifelong pair bonding with one partner is the natural human default, the way we've always done it. But if you look at your own romantic history, or your friends' relationships, or even your parents' marriage, cracks appear. Almost everyone you know has experienced jealousy, wandering eyes, secret crushes, or outright infidelity at some point. And across the globe, divorce rates hover near 50% in modern societies. Hardly the picture of a naturally monogamous species. So here's the question that biology has been quietly answering for decades. What if humans were never meant to be monogamous? What if lifelong fidelity is not your biological destiny, but a recent social invention that fights against millions of years of evolution? The real answer is far stranger than you might expect, and it will change how you see every relationship you've ever had. Before you dive into the science, let's look at what monogamy actually means across the animal kingdom. Biologically, monogamy is rare among mammals. Only about 3 to 5% of mammalian species practice any form of pair bonding. That includes a few species of voles, some foxes, and certain primates, but humans are not among the most faithful. In fact, when you compare human reproductive anatomy, behavior, and social structure to other animals, the evidence points in one unmistakable direction. Take a simple physical clue: testicle size relative to body mass. Humans have medium-sized testes, larger than gorillas, smaller than chimpanzees. Gorillas live in harems where one male dominates many females. Low sperm competition means tiny testes. Chimpanzees live in multi-male, multi-female groups where females mate with multiple males. Intense sperm competition means huge testes. Humans sit right in the middle, suggesting you evolved in a social environment where some, but not exclusive, sperm competition occurred. That's called intermediate mating effort, and it's a signature of a species that is not strictly monogamous. Another clue: penis shape and the volume of ejaculate. The human penis has a distinct coronal ridge, a feature that, in other primates, helps displace previous mating semen from the female reproductive tract. That is not a design for pair-bonded fidelity. It's a design for competition. Add to that the fact that human ovulation is concealed. Unlike many other animals, you cannot tell when a female is fertile. This makes paternity uncertain, which reduces male aggression toward infants and encourages male investment in offspring, but also creates the perfect environment for extra pair mating. So before you even look at behavior, your own body whispers a story of multiple partners. Now travel back in time to the world of your ancestors, the hunter-gatherers. Anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherer societies, like the Hadza in Tanzania or the Ache in Paraguay, observe a consistent pattern. In most of these groups, pair bonding exists, but it is flexible, serial, and often non-exclusive. A woman might have a primary partner for child-rearing, but also have sexual relationships with other men. A man might stay with one woman for years, but also father children with other women. This is called social monogamy with extra pair copulation, and it's the norm across most human societies historically. In fact, a landmark review of 849 human societies by anthropologist Dr. Murdoch found that only 16% practice strict lifelong monogamy. The vast majority practice polygyny, one man and multiple women, or serial monogamy, one partner at a time, but many over a lifetime. Even in societies that officially enforce monogamy, studies show that up to 30 to 50% of individuals report having extra-pair sexual experiences. So, if monogamy were truly natural, why would so many people violate it so frequently? The answer lies in your evolutionary past, a past where survival depended on a different reproductive calculus. Consider the evolutionary pressures that shaped your ancestors living in small bands of about 50 to 150 individuals. In such groups, every adult knew every other adult. There was no privacy, no anonymous cities, no dating apps. Reproductive success was the single most important driver of evolution, and that meant both males and females needed to maximize their genetic legacy. For males, the most effective strategy was not to guard one female jealously, but to mate with as many females as possible while also providing some paternal care. For females, the strategy was more complex. They needed a male who would invest in their offspring, but also genetic diversity was beneficial. So females would often take a primary male for provisioning, but also mate secretly with higher quality males on the side. This is called the sexy son hypothesis. If a female mates with a fit, attractive male, her sons inherit those traits and become more successful themselves. Dr. Buss, an evolutionary psychologist, has documented that both sexes are predisposed to desire multiple partners, but in different ways. Men tend to want variety in sexual partners, more novelty, more partners. Women tend to want quality and status, and will often trade up if given the chance. This is not a moral judgment. It's a description of evolved psychological mechanisms that were adaptive in your ancestral environment. But here's the twist. None of this means that humans cannot be monogamous. It just means that monogamy requires effort, culture, and suppression of our natural inclinations. Now, look at the neuroscience. What happens in your brain when you bond with someone? Dr. Fisher, a biological anthropologist, has studied the brain chemistry of romantic love and attachment. She found that romantic love is driven by dopamine and norepinephrine, creating euphoria, obsession, and a focus on one person. But this intense romantic phase typically lasts only 12 to 18 months, enough time for a couple to conceive and raise an infant through its most vulnerable period. After that, the brain shifts to a more stable attachment system driven by oxytocin and vasopressin, hormones that promote pair bonding and parental care. However, these attachment hormones do not create sexual exclusivity. They create a preference for the familiar partner, but they do not eliminate the capacity for lust toward others. In fact, Dr. Fisher's brain scans of people in love show that the lust, romantic love, and attachment systems are separate neural circuits that can operate simultaneously. This means you can feel deep attachment to your long-term partner while also feeling sexual attraction to someone else. That's not a moral failing. It's a feature of human neurobiology. And here's the crucial piece. In many traditional societies, this was understood and accommodated. Extra-pair liaisons were often tolerated, ritualized, or even encouraged in certain seasons or ceremonies. It was only with the rise of agriculture, private property, and hereditary wealth that strict monogamy became enforced, as a way to ensure inheritance passed to legitimate heirs. This is a profound point. Monogamy, as you know it, may be a social construct invented to protect property rights, not a biological mandate. So here's the counterintuitive truth that the science reveals. Humans are not naturally monogamous, but you are also not naturally promiscuous. You are conditionally monogamous. Your mating strategy is flexible, depending on ecological, social, and personal circumstances. In environments where resources are scarce and children need high parental investment, monogamy like pair bonding becomes adaptive. In environments where resources are abundant and paternity is less certain, extra-pair mating becomes more common. This explains why human societies vary so dramatically in their marriage systems, from strict monogamy to polygyny to polyandry to serial monogamy. And it explains why even within supposedly monogamous cultures, infidelity is so common. It's the expression of an ancient strategy that has not been erased. But here's the real kicker. The ideal of lifelong, exclusive, romantic monogamy is not only unnatural, it may be detrimental to human happiness. Studies show that people who expect a lifetime of sexual and emotional exclusivity are often devastated by normal fluctuations in desire and attraction. They interpret a wandering eye or a momentary crush as a sign of a failing relationship, when in fact it's just biology doing its job. So the twist is this. Your desire for other people is not a betrayal of your love. It's an echo of your evolutionary history. And the myth of natural monogamy may be the source of more heartbreak than infidelity itself. Now look at your own life through this lens. Think about the last time you felt attracted to someone other than your partner, and the guilt that followed. That guilt is not a sign that you're a bad person. It's a sign that you've internalized a cultural ideal that clashes with your biology. Consider the phenomenon of the 7-year itch, the statistical tendency for marital satisfaction to dip around the 7th year. That's roughly the time it takes for a child to reach relative independence. And in ancestral environments, that might be the point where a couple would separate and seek new partners. Or think about the rise of consensual non-monogamy, open marriages, polyamory, and swinging, which are growing in visibility and acceptance. These aren't fringe lifestyles. They may be attempts to reconcile your evolved desires with your modern values. And consider the dating app economy, where people swipe through hundreds of potential partners in minutes. This hyperstimulation of variety seeking is perfectly aligned with your ancestral mating psychology, but it's clashing with your cultural expectation of the one. Even the institution of marriage itself has changed dramatically, from an economic and property arrangement to a romantic ideal. You are asking one person to be your lover, best friend, co-parent, financial partner, an emotional soulmate for life, a demand no other animal and few humans historically ever made. The divorce rate is not a sign of moral decay. It's a sign that your expectations have outpaced your biology. But this doesn't mean you should abandon your relationship or give up on commitment. Rather, understanding the science allows you to make conscious choices, to build a relationship that acknowledges your nature while still creating meaning and stability. Many couples thrive precisely because they acknowledge their attraction to others, communicate openly, and choose each other anyway. The healthiest relationships may be those that are based on choice, not compulsion, where both partners know they could be with others but decide to stay. That's a form of love that is far more powerful than one born of ignorance or fear. And finally, consider the broader societal implications. If you accept that humans are not naturally monogamous, you might reduce the stigma around infidelity, normalize conversations about desire, and create more honest relationships. You might even design better social policies like better support for single parents, more flexible family structures, and less shame around divorce. The science doesn't tell you how to live. It simply tells you what you are. And what you are is a deeply social, mildly polygamous, conditionally monogamous primate with a remarkable capacity for love, commitment, and also desire. So let's return to where you began. You've probably assumed that lifelong pair bonding with one partner is the natural human default. But now you know that's not quite the story. The story is that humans evolved in a world of flexible mating strategies, where love, lust, and attachment were separate systems that could coexist in conflict. You're not broken for feeling attraction to others. You're not failing if your relationship goes through rough patches. You are simply a human being navigating a world that demands monogamy while your brain whispers otherwise. And perhaps the most liberating truth is this: understanding your nature gives you the freedom to choose. You can choose to be monogamous because it brings you meaning, not because it's natural. You can choose to communicate your desires openly, rather than hiding them in shame. And you can hold your relationships with the grace of knowing that love is not about suppressing your biology, but about harnessing it for connection. So the next time you catch yourself wondering, am I doing this right? Remember, there's no one right way. There's only what works for you in your time with your partner for your life. And that's the strangest, most beautiful truth of all.